Okay, so after watching the online version of Chester's Way, you got to hear somebody else read the text. What are some things that you noticed that were good about their fluency, that made them a fluent reader?
Well, they did use different voices for the characters,
Mm-hmm.
and they also, at happy times, their voice would be like up, and then at sad times, usually the voice would go down, kind of like a deeper voice.
Yeah. And then what did you notice about when they were like narrating, when it wasn't either the characters talking, they were just like reading the text in between? How would they talk?
They're talking kind of like normal.
Yeah, just like a normal rate. And then what did you notice about their pace? Like how...
There was a very normal pace.
Yeah, like it wasn't too fast and it wasn't too slow for our reader to understand. So now that you got to see somebody else read it, I have the same exact text here, Chester's Way, by Kevin Hankes. So I want you to go ahead and read and think about those things that you saw them do. They had that normal pace. They would change their expression to either be excited or sad, or if there was ever a question mark, that they would ask it in a question. And then you don't have to do the different voices, but just like reading like you are the character at those parts where the character's speaking. And then to make sure that you keep that pace so that me as your listener can understand. So I want you to keep all those things in mind as you go ahead and do the read aloud of this text. Nope, I think there we go. Oh, go ahead and read out loud.
Okay, Chester had his own way of doing things. He always cut a sandwich diagonally. He always got out of bed on the same side. He never left the house without double knotting his shoes. Chester always had the same thing for breakfast, toast with jam on peanut butter. He always carried a miniature first aid kit on his back pocket, just in case. You definitely have a mind of your own, said Chester's mother. That's one way to put it, said Chester's father.
Okay, I want to pause super quick. Do you know, if you can think back to the text when they were reading it online, how it keeps saying always here? Do you know how they read it? Can you think back to like how they read it?
Kind of like, he always.
Yeah, exactly. So if you ever see that again, try to do that. Or even like with never, they'd be like, and he never left the house.
Okay.
So just adding in that little bit of expression.
Chester and his best friend Wilson had exactly the same way. That's why they were best friends. Chester wouldn't play baseball unless Wilson played, and they never swung at the first pitch or slid head first. Wilson wouldn't ride his bike unless Chester wanted to, and they always used to use hand signals. If Chester was hungry, Wilson was too, but they rarely ate between meals. Some days I can't tell those two apart, said Wilson's mother. Me either, said Wilson's father. Chester and Wilson. Wilson and Chester. That's the way it is. That's the way it was. They loved going on picnics. Once, when Wilson accidentally swallowed a watermelon seed, he cried because he was afraid that a watermelon plant would grow inside of him. Chester swallowed one too. Don't worry, said Chester. Now if you grow a watermelon plant, I will grow one too.
Okay, that was great. I love how you said, like, don't worry, said Chester. So you raised the expression in your voice for the quotes, and then you brought down that normal pace of said Chester. Great job reading in the quotation marks.
Chester duplicated his Christmas list and gave a copy to Wilson because they always wanted the same things anyway. For Halloween, they always dressed as things that went together, like salt, pepper shakers, 2 mints on a string, ham and eggs. They really are 2 peas in a pod, said Chester's mother. Looks like it, said Chester's father. In spring, Chester and Wilson shared the same umbrella. In winter, they never threw snowballs at each other. In fall, they raked leaves together. And in summer, they reminded each other to wear sunscreen so they wouldn't burn. Chester and Wilson, that's the way it is. And then Lily moved into the neighborhood.
Okay, I want to pause and I want to go back to this part. So read that part one more time.
Chester and Wilson, that's the way it was.
Okay, I'm going to imitate it. It's like called echo reading. So I'm going to read it and then you're going to echo it.
Okay.
So, Chester and Wilson, Wilson and Chester, that's the way it was.
Chester and Wilson and Chester, that's the way it was.
Okay, one more time, ready? Chester and Wilson, Wilson and Chester. That's the way it was.
Chester and Wilson, Wilson and Chester. That's the way it was.
Good. You hear how I changed my voice a little bit further? That's the way it was. Okay. Go ahead and keep doing a great job.
I'm Lily, and I'm the queen. I like everything. Lily had her own way of doing things.
Okay, so let's pause. So Lily's a new character. And so it says, Lily had her way of doing things. So if this was her reading this, how do you think that she would be saying that?
Very loudly.
Yeah, can you try it again?
I am Lily. I am the queen. I like everything.
Good, because you can even read the text when they make that word big like that. I like everything. So I am Lily. I'm the queen. I like everything. One more time.
I am Lily. I am the queen. I like everything.
Good, because that explanation point tells you you have to read that with such enthusiasm.
She wore band-aids all over her arms, legs, to look brave. She talked backwards to herself sometimes, so no one would know what she was saying. She never left the house without one of her nifty disguises.
Okay, so remember how we talked about how you would say never. And she never left the house without one of her nifty disguises.
Yeah. Lily waved at the cars that passed by, even if she didn't know who there was in them. And she always carried a loaded squirt gun in her back pocket, just in case. She definitely had a mind of her own, said Chester. That's the way to put it, said Wilson.
Good job reading their characters.
Then when Lily asked Chester and Wilson to play, they said they were busy. When she called them up on the phone, they disguised their voices and said they were not home. If Lily was walking on one side of the street, Chester and Wilson crossed to the other and hid. She's something else, said Chester. Looks like it, said Wilson. One day, while Chester and Wilson were practicing their hand signals, some older boys rode by popping wheelies and then circled Chester and Wilson by yelling personal remarks. Chester and Wilson didn't know what to do. Just when they were about to give up hope, a fierce-looking cat with horrible fangs jumped out of the bushes and frightened the older boys away.
Okay, we're going to do the echo reading for this passage one more time. So I'll read it, and then you can read it. We'll do it line by line.
Okay.
Chester and Wilson didn't know what to do.
Chester and Wilson did not know what to do. Didn't know what to do.
Just when they were about to give up hope, a fierce-looking cat with horrible fangs jumped out of the bushes and frightened the older boys away.
Just when they were about to give up hope, a fierce-looking cat with horrible fangs jumped out of the bushes and frightened the older boys away.
Okay, we're going to do the last sentence one more time. Just when they were about to give up hope, a fierce-looking cat with horrible fangs jumped out of the bushes and frightened the older boys away.
Just when they were about to give up hope, a fierce-looking cat with horrible fangs jumped out of the bushes and frightened the older boys away.
Perfect. Go ahead and keep going. We're almost done. Doing a great job.
Are you? I think you are. Chester asked. Are you who I think you are? Chester asked the cat. Of course, the cat replied. Thank you, Lily, said Chester. You're welcome, Chester, said Lily. Thank you, Lily, said Wilson. You're welcome, Wilson, said Lily. I'm glad you were wearing a disguise, said Chester. I'm glad you had your squirt gun, said Wilson. I always do, said Lily, just in case. Afterward, Chester invited Lily over for lunch. You have a muscle mouse cut, said Lily.
So now this, if you look at this sentence, say the you underlined. What do you think that means, how you should read that if it's underlined?
Well, it says, it's not really telling who it was, it just said you. It's not Wilson or Chester, it just said you.
And when it's underlined, it's kind of like you, it's a little bit like enthusiasm on that specific word. Yeah, you're going to express that word. And then look at the punctuation in that sentence. It's kind of different. What does it have at the end?
Exclamation point and question.
So there's a question mark and exclamation point. which we don't usually see in text that much. It's more usually when we're like talking to our friends or something over text, like, what? Oh my gosh, you did that? So she's talking with like such enthusiasm because she's so excited that he has this Muscle Mouse cup. So she's emphasizing you, like, you have a Muscle Mouse cup? She's like so surprised and so excited. So go ahead and try and read that sentence one more time.
You have a Muscle Mouse cup?
That's good.
Said Lily. Of course, said Chester. I do too, said Lily. Same here, said Wilson. Chester and Wilson put their sandwiches diagonally. Lily asked Chester's mother if she had cookie cutters, and she made stars and flowers and bells. That's neat, said Chester. Wow, said Wilson. That night, Lily invited Chester and Wilson to sleep over. You have a nightlight? Said Chester. Of course, said Lily. I do too, said Chester. Same here, said Wilson. Chester and Wilson wanted toast with jam and peanut butter for breakfast. The next morning, boring, said Lily.
Okay, so how would she have said that?
Boring.
Yeah, boring.
Oh, yeah. Boring, said Lily. Try this instead. This is good, said Chester.
Now, how would he say this is good? Look at the exclamation point.
Oh, this is good,
Mm-hmm.
said Chester. Wow, said Wilson.
Yeah, that's one thing that's like a little tricky, but sometimes you have to be able to like look at the end of the sentence while you're reading. So you're kind of doing both. You're looking at the words, but you kind of have to look at the end to know how to read the sentence.
After that, when Lily asked Chester and Wilson to play, they said yes. When she called them up on the phone, they had a pleasant conversation. And if Lily was walking on one side of the street, Chester and Wilson waved and ran to catch up with her. Chester and Wilson taught Lily hand signals, and she taught them how to pop wheelies. Lily taught Chester and Wilson how to talk backwards, and they taught her how to double knot her shoes. Some days I can't tell those three apart, said Lily's mother. Me either, said Lily's father.
Okay, we're going to echo read on this one. Some days I can't tell those three apart, said Lily's mother.
Some days I can't tell those three apart, said Lily's mother.
Me either, said Lily's father.
Me either, said Lily's father.
Good.
Chester and Wilson and Lily, Lily and Wilson and Chester. That's the way it was. For Halloween, they dressed up as the three blind mice. For Christmas, Lily gave Chester and Wilson nifty disguises, and they gave her a box of multicolored shoelaces, extra long for double knotting. They loved going to picnics when Chester and Wilson told Lily about how they each swallowed a watermelon seed once. Lily swallowed 3 of them. I grew a watermelon plant for each of us, she said. In spring, Chester and Wilson and Lily shared the same umbrella. In winter, they never threw snowballs at each other. In fall, they raked leaves together. In summer, they reminded each other to wear sunscreen so they wouldn't get burnt. Chester, Wilson, and Lily. Lily and Wilson and Chester. That's the way it was. And then Victor moved into the neighborhood.
All right. Good job. So when we're talking about fluency, we're talking about your rate of reading, like your pace, if you're too slow, too fast, right in the middle. Your expression of being able to read with like excited or sad, be able to read the characters' voices. And then that also includes reading the punctuation, of being able to like read as a period, a question mark, or an exclamation point. So thinking about all those parts that are part of fluency, what do you think is like after reading that? After reading that, what parts are easy? What's easy for you to do, and what do you think that was a little bit hard to do?
Well, when it said all their names, it said like Lily, Chester, Wilson, and all of them.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of got a little hard. And the easy parts,
they like jumbled together, like it's hard to see the different words. Yeah.
And then the easy parts were like when it said they always like reminded each other, or like when they said they always did stuff together.
Yeah, to be able to like emphasize those words. How do you think it is like reading the punctuation? Because I was saying how it's a little tricky because you have to look at the end. Do you think that's hard or it's easy? Some parts are hard, some are easy.
Some parts are hard, some parts are easy.
Yeah. Because I think that sometimes when I was watching you read, the ones that are like shorter, it's easier to be able to like look ahead, or if you kind of know like wow or that's so cool. Then those long sentences, like even like the you have a Mickey Mouse cup, you don't, or muscle mouse, muscle mouse cup. Like when it's on 2 lines like that, it's kind of hard to see ahead to that. So that's one thing that we can still practice in our next lessons. So now we're going to switch gears a little bit. We're going to stick with the fluency, but we're going to go over to your Reader's Theater text. And we're going to kind of follow the same structure we've been doing today. So you got to see someone read and see their fluency, and then you got to practice with the text. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to read you the Reader's Theater. So I'll read it to you, and then I'll let you silently read it, and then you can practice it a couple times at the end of our lesson today.
Yeah.
Sound good?
Yep.
Okay. So we're going to go ahead and do the same reader's text that we've been doing, cover. So we have been doing 2 parts of Greg and Abby. So I will go ahead and I'm going to read both characters so you can kind of see both sides of the characters. So I'll try to talk with a deep voice when it's Greg, which would be your character, and I'll try to talk in a girl voice when it's Abby, but my throat hurts, so we'll see.
Yeah.
It can't be, it can't be. What are we going to do? No! What are we going to do? Abby stares throughout and does not speak. I cannot believe she's gone. Dead. How could he leave us too? What are we going to do? I'm going to have to work in a gas station for the rest of my life because he left us up and alone. Stop, 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 stop. Silence. I can't think. I can't do anything except cry. But I don't want to cry. I want to scream. I want to tear at something, my skin, my hair, but it's too deep. I can't touch it. We did what we had to do. Our only choice. We went to the forest, our cabin. Our father built it before he left, before our mother died. It's working out well. We take care of ourselves and each other. Totally self-sufficient. It's all good. For days, weeks, I don't even know how long, I howled at the moon. Howled loud, low, until no sound would come out of my throat, until I felt like it would bleed. It was heaven. Heaven! Still is. I know she can hear me. Mom, I know he can hear me. If I saw him now, I think I would tear his guts out. I could too. I could. Something's changed in me. Some days I reach down and scoop up a whole fistful of dirt and just put it in my mouth.